Kendrick Lamar. Yeah, you're scared of Kendrick. Tell him to step foot in Toronto. Swiss cheese. If you know the streets, you know exactly what Swiss cheese really means. When Drake's boy top 5 threw this line at Kendrick, it sounded like just another reckless threat. But now, word is Drake's crew actually backed it up. Reports claim Kendrick was attacked and rushed to the hospital. Suddenly, this isn't just lyrical sparring anymore. It's crossing into real violence. Let me break it down. This is how rap beef turned into street beef. The streets have been watching this whole Drake versus Kendrick drama for years. But things only took a deadly turn in 2024. The saga goes all the way back to 2013 when Kendrick first shook the industry with his Control verse, taking shots at nearly everyone. But the beef reignited in March 2024 when Kendrick hopped on Future and Metro Boomins like that, dismissing the so-called Big Three, himself, Drake, and J. Cole, and boldly declared he stood alone on top. In hip-hop, that's competitive tradition. Artists battle with bars, creativity, and flows. But when the streets get involved, people forget it's art. That's when competition turns into body counts. Enter Hassan Ali, better known as Top 5, a Toronto street rapper tied closely with Drake's OVO circle. He's not just another industry name. Top 5 carries a past full of arrests, murder charges, firearm charges, you name it. When someone like him feels disrespected, it's not about lyrical clapbacks. It's about blood. The first real glimpse of his rage came in September 2024 when he went live and straight up said he was hunting Kendrick and Metro Boomin.
Yo, listen, man. I just want two people right now, man. I'm not, it's not a threat. I'm just looking for Metro Boomin and Kendrick Lamar. I'm doing my homework right now. I'm doing my task on them right now.
When a street guy says he's doing homework on you, it ain't about studying albums. It's about figuring out where you sleep. The West Coast wasn't staying silent either. TD Smack went live firing back, defending Kendrick.
Top 5, he a big rapper from Toronto. Yeah. You in Toronto.
Compton's AD also jumped in, warning that security guards get shot every day, basically reminding those Toronto cats that having bodyguards won't save you when real shooters are gunning. But Top 5 didn't flinch. In October 2024, he doubled down, daring Kendrick to come to Toronto, openly threatening to turn him into Swiss cheese. For those who don't know, that's slang for leaving someone riddled with so many bullets they look like a block of cheese. Now, threats in hip-hop are nothing new, but when someone with Top 5's violent history is making them, things shift. This isn't a rapper just puffing up his chest for clout. This is a man who's lived that life, ready to enforce it. The tension only escalated as 2024 went on. Top 5 popped up on DJ Academic's stream, calling for Kendrick's death, heated and unfiltered, bragging about how he and Drake were studying the Not Like Us video and doing homework on everyone in it. Suddenly, it wasn't just about Kendrick anymore. He was threatening anybody who dared show love to him.
Basically threatened to shoot Kendrick if he comes to Toronto.
Oh, that's crazy. I don't know nothing about that.
Yeah.
I
mean, Toronto's no joke, man.
That's crazy.
Respected voices in hip-hop couldn't ignore how reckless it was getting. Tony Yayo explained that the real danger was Top 5 moving like he was bulletproof. After beating that murder case, he walked around bragging, "I just beat a body. I feel untouchable." And when a street dude feels like the law can't touch him, he becomes the biggest threat to everyone else. The hip-hop community was torn. Some laughed it off like entertainment, but the real ones knew it was dead serious. Even Whack 100 stepped up, calling out Top 5's fake tough guy act.
Kendrick's not showing up for
nobody, bro. Dude is nobody. Come on, we watched this same dude get mushed in the face and kicked in that. Oh, I was only 19. I don't know where y'all come from, bro. We off the porch at 12, right? We ain't going for that. What you mean you was only 19 when you got mushed in the face?
Whack 100 basically voiced what a lot of real street dudes were already thinking. To him, Top 5 was just loud talk and no real action, a 140-pound kid trying to sound dangerous online. But here's the problem with brushing off threats like that. Sometimes the smallest ones end up being the deadliest, especially when they've got nothing to lose and everything to prove. That's why this situation spiraled so badly that law enforcement had to step in. By January 2025, Top 5 was arrested on fresh firearm charges, directly tied to the threats he'd been making against Kendrick. Police even labeled him as one of Drake's tough-talking Toronto enforcers, pointing out the endless death threats he'd pushed out in public. But locking him up didn't stop the danger. As soon as Kendrick announced his massive national tour with shows in Toronto, new warnings started flooding social media. And this time it wasn't just Top 5. Other Toronto street cats jumped in, treating it like a matter of city pride. What made things worse was how media voices started amplifying the chaos. DJ Academics gave Top 5 a stage on his streams, basically turning violent death threats into clickbait content. That's the type of reckless hype that gets people killed, when real beef is served up as entertainment. And then there's Drake's role in all of this. Complicated as hell. Reports surfaced claiming Drake had been sending threatening voice notes to Kendrick's team, trying to act like some kind of mob boss. One message allegedly said, "I'm going to dun you." Heavy words for someone raised in the Toronto suburbs. Now, Drake never officially told anyone to take action, but when you've got street soldiers in your circle making threats in your name, and you don't shut it down, it's as good as giving the green light. Even Top Dog, the head of TD, had to step in by November 2024, warning people that Kendrick was a dangerous man and pleading for cooler heads to prevail. When label bosses start putting out statements like that, you know the drama has blown way past music. And the international angle made it even messier. Toronto street politics and LA street politics aren't the same, but when real shooters on both sides are talking about catching bodies, geography stops mattering. Tony Yeo put it plain. Nobody in LA is soft. Nobody in Canada is soft either. I go to both places, so I stay neutral. But when you talk reckless, you better remember the police and the feds are listening. Once federal eyes got involved, everyone's life suddenly got harder. And the scariest part? The threats weren't just targeting Kendrick anymore. His family was dragged into it. That's when it became clear the whole situation had completely lost control. In street code, family is supposed to stay off limits. But when emotions run high and social media gives everyone a stage, those rules vanish fast. What made this feud even more dangerous was its sheer randomness. Reports surfaced about Drake fans harassing a woman at his concert, trying to pressure her into making false assault claims. When she refused, they doxed her and sent death threats. That's how beef spreads. From artists to their crews, to random fans who suddenly think they're soldiers riding for their favorite rapper. The psychological toll here can't be ignored. These are artists who started as competitive colleagues, but now can't move without massive security. That changes how you live, how you perform, how you even breathe in public. By July 2025, fresh threats were still circulating online, with posts and videos targeting Kendrick as his Toronto tour dates approached. Locking up Top 5 didn't stop it. It just pushed the threats underground, making them harder to track. What should have been creative rivalry had morphed into something genuinely deadly. Once real shooters started taking sides, it stopped being just hip-hop beef and became a street war dressed in rap lyrics. We were witnessing people using rap beef as a cover to settle scores and prove loyalty in the bloodiest ways possible. And when the streets took over, things escalated beyond imagination. This wasn't just internet talk anymore. This was real-life gunfire, bodies bleeding, and violence spilling right onto Drake's own doorstep. The timing wasn't random either. It all connected back to May 2024, when Kendrick dropped Not Like Us. That diss didn't just call Drake a pedophile, it also plastered his Toronto mansion on the cover art, marked up like a registered offender's house. That wasn't only disrespect, it was practically dropping a GPS pin for every unhinged fan and every street enemy who wanted smoke. Now, Drake's mansion, the Embassy, a $100 million fortress in Toronto's exclusive bridle path, was supposed to be untouchable. A palace, not a target. But in May 2024, that fortress was violated in ways nobody expected. The first strike came on May 7, 2024. Around 2:09 a.m. armed shooters pulled up to Drake's gates, shouting insults before opening fire. These weren't warning shots. They were trying to kill. Bullets tore into the front door, striking Drake's close friend and security guard in the chest. Inside the house, Drake and his people fought to keep the man alive, using towels to stop the bleeding while waiting nearly 30 minutes for an ambulance. Imagine that, one of the biggest artists on the planet, watching his own friend bleed out at his doorstep over a rap beef. That's when everyone knew this had gone too far. Drake was home, but unharmed. The shooters fled, and police began investigating. But let's be real, you don't shoot up Drake's mansion by accident, especially not right after Kendrick exposed the address to millions. But the madness didn't stop there. The very next day, May 8th, 2024, another bizarre incident hit. A man literally dug a hole under Drake's security fence with his bare hands, crawled onto the property, and started shouting racist threats. He was dragged off under Canada's Mental Health Act, but he'd already proved the point. This beef had radicalized people. Then came May 9th, 2024, a third attack. Another intruder tried to breach Drake's property, brawled with security, and ended up hospitalized after getting beaten down. 3 days. 3 separate attacks, all targeting Drake's estate. Right after the most disrespectful diss in hip-hop history. Police swarmed the bridle path, patrolling Drake's mansion like it was a crime scene. The hip-hop world split into camps. Some connected the violence directly to Kendrick's diss. Others whispered that maybe Drake staged it all for sympathy. But with bullets flying and blood spilled, there was nothing staged about it. And the chaos didn't stay contained in Toronto. The beef spread like wildfire across North America. Rappers, fans, and street crews were all picking sides, and those choices were leading to real-world confrontations that went way beyond the music. On June 30th, 2024, things exploded when Rick Ross, who had publicly sided with Kendrick in the beef, performed at the Ignite Music Festival in Vancouver. Ross had been dissing Drake heavy, clowning him as fake and mocking his alleged plastic surgeries on tracks like Champagne Moments. So when he touched down in Canada, Drake's backyard, everyone knew it could get messy. The show went smooth until the very end. As Ross left the stage, his DJ pulled the ultimate petty move, blasting Not Like Us as the walk-off track. Imagine that, Kendrick's diss against Drake echoing through a Canadian festival crowd full of Drake's fans. What happened next turned into full-blown street chaos caught on multiple cameras. As Ross came off stage, a group of Drake supporters pressed him and his crew in VIP. One guy stepped up, barking, "What's up? You're in our city," making it clear they were riding for the Sixth God. Then came the spark. Somebody swung at Ross, and all hell broke loose. Around 10 to 15 people from both sides brawled, fists flying, bodies dropping, bottles smashing. Footage showed Ross DJ getting hit with a bottle, one of his bodyguards getting jumped, all while Not Like Us blasted in the background like a soundtrack to the madness. The audio was surreal. You could hear fans screaming, "Stop! Get out of here!" while others mockingly shouted Ross' own lyrics, "Every day I'm hustlin'," as they beat his crew. That's next-level disrespect, beating a man while quoting his bars back at him. Security eventually broke it up, but the message was crystal clear. Ride with Kendrick against Drake, and you're not welcome in Canada. No arrests. No charges. But everyone knew what it was. The attackers were widely assumed to be OVO affiliates, though nothing official stuck. Social media quickly labeled them Drake's goons and warned outsiders not to test Canada if they had beef with him. Ross handled the aftermath like a boss. He posted a photo of his private jet with the caption, "Vancouver, it was fun. Till next time," brushing it off like nothing. Days later, he dropped a selfie showing no injuries, proving he hadn't been seriously hurt. Drake's response? Subtle but loud. He didn't comment, but he liked to post about the fight and later posted a Canada Day shoutout, which many saw as a slick jab at Ross getting touched in his own country. Other rappers joined the clowning. 50 Cent trolled Ross on socials, reposting fight clips and joking he'd never set foot in Canada again. To outsiders, it became entertainment. But the darker reality was how social media amplified the violence, turning real street fights into viral content. Things escalated further when reports surfaced about OVO stores getting vandalized with Not Like Us graffiti. This wasn't just rap beef anymore, it was business, reputation, and safety under attack. For Drake, Knowing shooters had literally come to his house changed everything about how he lived. Veterans in the game, scarred by the East Coast, West Coast wars of the 90s, warned that history was repeating itself, only now with even deadlier stakes. Tony Yeo captured the gravity in one interview, saying, "This is one of the biggest beefs you've ever seen. Two of the world's top artists going at it. The whole world's watching." But instead of slowing down, things took an even wilder turn. Streamers and podcasters started hyping the violence, monetizing every threat and punch thrown. Real lives were becoming pay-per-view entertainment. And behind the music, the business world was shaken. Venues upgraded security. Tours rerouted around hotspots. Both Drake and Kendrick's teams expanded legal and security budgets to survive this war. By late 2024, it was obvious. The mansion shootings and the Vancouver fight weren't isolated. They were pieces of a bigger, escalating storm. That's when Drake made his most shocking move. He took the beef off the streets and into the courts. In November 2024, Drake stunned hip-hop by suing his own record label, Universal Music Group, in federal court. The lawsuit accused UMG of knowingly promoting content, specifically Not Like Us, that contained what he called false, defamatory allegations about pedophilia and trafficking. And because it went viral, he argued it directly endangered his life by encouraging real shooters to target him. Drake basically claimed his own label had put a hit on him in pursuit of profit. In the streets, snitching on your own circle is the lowest move. But in the corporate world, Drake was doing the equivalent, flipping on his own label to the feds. He even named Lucian Grange, UMG's top boss, accusing him of looking the other way while the money rolled in. The legal play was strategic. He didn't directly sue Kendrick, but mentioned him over 400 times in the filings and demanded access to all of Kendrick's contracts and business records. This was chess, not checkers, going after the infrastructure that amplified Kendrick's music without pulling him into a direct legal counterattack. Universal Music Group's response came quick and heavy. Their lawyers filed motions to throw the entire case out, dismissing Drake's lawsuit as nothing more than whining from an artist who couldn't handle losing a rap battle. In plain words, they told a federal judge that Drake was crying to the courts because he got embarrassed in hip-hop. But Drake wasn't backing down. When Kendrick performed Not Like Us at the Super Bowl halftime show in February 2025, Drake amended his lawsuit to include that performance. His argument? That UMG had used the biggest stage in American entertainment to push defamation against him in front of over 100 million viewers. The legal filings pulled the curtain back on some disturbing industry practices. Drake's team alleged that UMG used bots to fake streaming numbers, secretly paid radio stations, and manipulated Spotify playlists to make Not Like Us look bigger than it really was. If true, it meant the entire industry was a house of cards built on inflated numbers and corporate tricks. The hip-hop world was split. Cheryl James of Salt and Peppa blasted Drake, saying he violated hip-hop's unwritten rules by calling in lawyers instead of answering with bars. In the culture, running to the courts is about as disrespectful as it gets. Meanwhile, the discovery phase of the lawsuit revealed how serious it had become. Both Drake and Kendrick were placed on the witness list, meaning they could be forced to testify under oath about their beef. That's when everyone realized this wasn't entertainment anymore. The Super Bowl performance itself became a flashpoint. Security around Kendrick was intense, given the Toronto threats and Drake's legal filings. Reports claimed the NFL tried to pressure Kendrick not to perform the diss track, but he went ahead anyway, only tweaking a few lines to avoid saying certified pedophile on live TV. Even so, Drake's legal team filed it as evidence, claiming UMG had used America's biggest broadcast to smear him. Corporate warfare at its peak. But just because lawyers were in the room didn't mean the streets were silent. Throughout 2025, threats from Toronto crews kept surfacing online, targeting Kendrick as his tour dates approached. The arrest of Top 5 hadn't killed the beef. It had only pushed it deeper into the shadows, harder to trace and harder to stop. By July 2025, whispers spread that Drake was considering going independent, cutting ties with UMG, the very label that made him a superstar. If he actually walked away, it would be one of the boldest power moves in music history. The Grammys added fuel to the fire. In early 2025, Not Like Us swept the awards, winning Song of the Year and more. Drake's legal team pointed to that as further proof that the industry was actively rewarding and promoting content that endangered him. To Drake, the Grammys weren't just celebrating art. They were validating the same record that put his life in jeopardy. Cultural critics weighed in too. Feminist voices in hip-hop questioned how allegations of abuse and misconduct had been weaponized in the beef, turning trauma into entertainment. Social media platforms scrambled to update policies around content inciting violence, but their efforts were mostly reactive and ineffective. The case's federal scope started setting legal precedents. If an artist can sue a label for promoting diss tracks that lead to violence, the whole industry changes. Labels began quietly drafting new policies, lawyers warned about exposure, and streaming platforms faced new accountability for the content they boosted. The economic side was just as vicious. Tour revenues, brand deals, and streaming checks all became weapons in this war. Both Drake and Kendrick's business operations were permanently reshaped, with ballooning legal teams and security details. Industry insiders whispered that this lawsuit could crack the door wide open for other artists to sue their labels over diss tracks and beef promotions. And with global platforms in play, international law made everything messier. U.S. courts, Canadian law enforcement, and global tech platforms all colliding in one chaotic battlefield. By July 2025, the case was still in discovery. No trial date. But hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, tours, and partnerships hung in the balance. It was already one of the most expensive rap beefs in history. The culture itself stayed divided. Some said Drake was right. Artists needed protection from corporate exploitation and real-world violence. Others claimed he broke hip-hop's code forever. Either way, both he and Kendrick were forced to live like men in witness protection. Bulletproof SUVs, heavy security, background checks on everyone in their orbit. The ultimate outcome, whether settlement, industry intervention, or further escalation, will decide not only the futures of Drake and Kendrick, but the future of hip-hop beef itself in the digital age. What's certain is that the rules have changed. Once bullets start flying and federal judges weigh in, the old codes of rap battles are dead.